everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of a new series that we have called Mobile Adventures. Basically what this is we are going to bring you behind the scenes as we repair, upgrade, and modify a 30-year-old mobile home.
Oh boy!
So the main thing we want to talk about in this episode here, this is just going to be an intro episode sort of explaining how we got here, the decisions that we made to get into this. So if you're looking to see the actual projects and the actual work that we're doing, we're not going to be doing any of that in this video. Skip forward to the next videos in the series where we'll actually get into the real work. If you care to know basically the thoughts and everything behind why we're making these decisions, then this is the episode for you. Long story short, many years ago when we got married, about 400 years ago, we started off in a fairly small starter home like everyone else, but as we increased the financial situation like everyone else, we followed the American dream and we wound up in a 3,200 square foot house with 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, a loft, a bonus room, a sunroom, 2 living rooms. Literally, we lived on separate floors of the house, and when she would yell my name, I couldn't hear her.
For 2 people.
2 people at a 3,200 square foot house with a postage stamp for a yard, which I hated. So, not too long ago, you may have noticed in the news and everywhere you look, everyone was into the tiny house phenomenon. And while I think it's not exactly the smartest thing when you move into a 100 square foot trailer on the back of your truck that costs 50 grand, the whole concept of the tiny house actually does make sense. And that was one of the things that we did, was sort of reevaluate where we were, because the amount we were paying for the mortgage was outrageous. We had sewer bills, water bills,
electric bills,
HOA fees, the taxes. The taxes were at our old house were pretty much more a month than we're actually paying for where we're at now. So we sort of made this conscious decision as we got older, and you start realizing and thinking about what's important, that we could be just as happy in something that was a lot smaller, that we could pay off a lot quicker. And that's basically what brought us to this location. And one of the things about what we were trying to do is basically get it to where we could live as cheap as humanly possible. Get it down to where none of our money was going into unimportant things like taxes and everything else.
So we went house hunting. And I will admit this was not my favorite process. I do not like looking at houses.
She hates change of any kind.
I do not like change at all. I think change is only good in quarters and nickels.
Oh, dimes aren't too bad either.
Yeah, dimes.
Pennies, though, yeah, everyone agrees. Pennies, yeah, just get rid of this.
I don't like change. So, when we decided to start looking, we would walk into these places and I would immediately go, nope, let's get out of here. And he would say, but let's look, let's give it a chance, let's see what's underneath. No, let's go. So finally he got to the point where we stopped looking together and he sent me on a mini adventure on my own. So I went with my mother to a few places, and most of those places we walked in and immediately were like, nope, not gonna happen. Walked out. There were 2 places that walked in and I'm like, maybe. And then I walked into this place and the first thing I said wasn't nope, it was the 80s called. They want their mobile home back.
One of the main goals that we had was to find something that was cheap, but that I could fix up pretty much myself. I had the skills to do most of the work, but we wanted to make sure, I think one of the terms you'll hear often on shows is that the bones were good. And that was a lot of the places that we looked at that were super cheap, that were an actual house. The quality was just, they just weren't there. I think one of the phrases that I used was, she won't be happy here long enough for me to get it back to where it needs to be. So one of the things we started looking for were things that cost a little bit more than we were initially looking at, but I could get them fixed up quicker, and the condition they were in were more move-in ready. Some of the places we looked at, it looked like it should have been condemned. And looking back, I can see where she was probably panicking some of the places that I was suggesting. There was a man and a woman living here. They were elderly, their kids had moved on. The husband passed away, and the woman who was living here after her husband passed was not really able to take care of the place and maintain it. Didn't really have a lot of the knowledge and skills to recognize when things were going wrong. Now, as we said before, this is a mobile home. And if you live in a certain part of the country, then what I'm about to say will make sense. But if you live down here in the South like we do, there's one thing that no mobile home ever has. We have a basement. Yes, a basement. Well, basements in the South, anyone who lives in the South and has a basement knows the biggest problem you have down here is the clay soil and water retention. Basements have all kinds of moisture problems. And that's what happened. The lady who was living here didn't know how to really keep track of what was going on downstairs. The basement flooded, mold built up. They wound up having to bring in the insurance company and do a remediation. It was a furnished basement at one time. When we got it, it was basically gutted and ripped out. Basically, it reached a point where she could no longer take care of herself, so her family moved her back in with them. And we literally bought this place as is. When I say as is, the pantry had food sitting in it. The fridge had food sitting in it. Every room was completely furnished. Soon we'll show you some of the pictures of what it looked like when we started off. And everything you see in those pictures was sitting in the house the day we moved in.
We will put all of the pictures at the end of the video so you can see what we started off with.
So our plan was to basically come in here and convert the interior and the exterior to what would actually be a house level quality. But still, in the tax records, it's still just a trailer. So the tax records, and that way it's going to be cheaper on us on the taxes, but we can still have a quality of life inside equal to what we had in the homes that we were living in.
And the good news is that it has a basement. So when he first mentioned the idea of mobile homes, I'll be honest, I nearly flipped my lid. I said, wherever we live, I have to have a place where I feel safe in the event of storms, because storms happen. Storms aren't planned. Mother Nature doesn't give big warning signs that a storm's about to happen, really. I mean, sometimes the weather guys know well in advance, but I needed a place where I could feel safe if a storm happened. And we were moving in the spring. And what happens in the spring? Tornadoes.
Tornado season! And what's the first thing they say? Get out of the trailer!
When I walked into this house, and my first thought wasn't nope, and my first thought really was 80s called. Well, the 80s can be updated. And my second thought was, there's a basement?
There's basically going to be two parts of this. Eventually, we're going to bring you in and start showing you the live, actual stuff as we're doing it, so you can actually watch real time as we're doing these projects. In the beginning, we want to get you caught up to where we are now. We don't have video of that, but we do have a lot of photos, so what we're going to do is put together some commentary over top of those photos and basically bring you up to the pieces and then give you a live walk around of what things look like now with the things that we've already done. There was one project we nicknamed The Beast. That was going to be particularly interesting.
One we nicknamed Lipstick on a Pig.
And it was exactly that. Basically trying to do things as cheap as we can because we know they're going to need to be redone to a higher extent later, but we wanted to at least get things more livable while we were still here.
So we've done a lot of updating, a lot of cleaning, a lot of shelving.
It was an adventure. We call it Mobile Adventures for a reason. It had been an adventure.
I would say that the biggest problem this place had, other than the immediate attention to a problem that was in the basement, all has to do with plumbing. And even that,
think you just triggered me.
Plumbing, and more plumbing. I think the first year we were here, I spent more time in the plumbing aisle at Lowe's than I ever wish to spend in plumbing aisle ever again.
An idea of some of the things. We basically have replaced flooring, we've done electrical work, we've done plumbing.
And by we, he means he.
We have basically sort of altered and torn down some walls. We have, the basement is its own nightmare. I mean, it could almost have its own channel of things that have been going on down there.
The basement adventures.
We call it the dungeon.
We go back and forth between things that need to be done and things that drive me nuts.
Yeah, we like to give it priority. So for me, it's all, everything's a P3, level P1 through P4. We're like a P3. But every so often something moves up the list and becomes a priority 1, must be fixed now.
One example of the 80s called is that in the bathroom, they had carpet as the flooring. It wasn't vinyl, it was carpet.
If you ever invent a time machine, please go back to the 80s and tell them don't ever put carpet in the bathroom.
That was my biggest, ooh, it's got to go. Well, originally, he said, well, we don't want to do the flooring until we figure out what else we want to do in here. Let's decide what we're going to do. Well, I waited.
Request for enhancement.
I waited, and then finally I said, why don't we just do the flooring, and then I'll be happy in there for a lot longer before we have to redo everything.
And it's a good thing she did, because when we lifted up the toilet, we found out the toilet had just recently started to leak internally where you couldn't see it, and it was getting wet under there. So it's actually a good thing that we made that decision.
So, pulled up the carpet. Well, we have what we like to call in our family cookies. You come up with one little thing that I would like for him to do, and it's like that book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie.
It's fun watching 2 OCD people try to work on something, because nothing is ever good enough, and it's like, oh, well, while we're doing this, let's go over and do that. Well, if we're doing that, we might as well do this. So
we pulled up the carpet. This is just an example of what you're going to get later. We pulled up the carpet, and underneath the carpet is all of this carpet deodorizer.
30 years worth.
Some of it must have been a good half-inch thick.
At least a quarter.
At least a quarter.
We have pictures.
It was disgusting. We take all that down, and we had decided originally, let's just put the cheapest stuff down, the quickest stuff down that we can, just so that I'm happy that the carpet's out of the bathroom. Well, that didn't work out so well, so we wound up, because of the room configuration, we actually wound up, and it's one of the few projects we did this, we contracted someone else out to do the flooring in the bathroom, just because it was easier for us in the short run.
Yeah, cutting and laying vinyl is one thing I've never done, and while I could probably figure it out, I didn't want to risk damaging hundreds of dollars worth of a product by screwing it up.
And
just pay the pros, let them do it.
As you see in the photos, our bathtub's in the middle of the room, so that vinyl would have had to be cut out very weirdly, and it just...
Yeah, 30 years ago, this was top of the line, high-end mobile home. You had the garden jacuzzi tub with the 2 separate vanity sinks, full carpet in the bathroom, the built-in makeup mirror area. Like, the carpeting that was in this place was 30 years old, but in the areas that were hidden under things, it was still some of the most plush and beautiful carpet you've ever seen. Like it was some high-end carpet 30 years ago.
But the cookies I speak of, once we pulled the carpet up in the bathroom, it made us realize how much the other carpets needed to be removed. So that went up on our priority list.
Yeah, one thing you'll hear me say later on is sometimes you pick the project and sometimes the project picks you. So there will be a few cases where the project has picked me and things have had to jump real quickly up the list. I hope you enjoyed this short explainer video of what you're going to be seeing. If you did like it, then you know the routine. Please subscribe, join, hit the bell, blah, blah, blah. That way you can be notified as we bring new things out. We certainly won't be flooding your inbox. I do still have a day job, so these projects are sort of, as they climb up the priority list, things get done. But we will be doing a lot of work in here. And it will, one of the good things about this is if you've ever thought about maybe getting a mobile home and weren't sure about working on them because you've heard all the horror stories about how they're different than a house, you'll be seeing a lot of pictures and video of what's beneath the walls, behind the curtain, so to speak. I'll be ripping a lot of stuff apart and letting you see what's there and explaining what we've learned in our time working on this project.
You're really going to look forward to seeing the beast.
That was fun. Actually, that project is still going on. There's wires hanging from the ceiling right now. But again, we hope you enjoyed this series. If you have any comments, please feel free to add them below. If there's something you would like to see us do, or if there's something we're doing wrong you would like to tell us about, please feel free to add those comments in and just let us know how we're doing.
I got it. We want to know what you would like to see first. Lipstick on a pig or the beast.
Or lipstick on the beast. Wait, I think I've seen that movie.
Comment below.
When we say it came as is and she mentions cleaning, yeah, we'll try to throw in some of the videos of these little scented things that they had for making things smell great. I think we found about 30 of them scattered through the house at different places.
I don't think we have any pictures of those.
Oh, there's one. I've seen it. They're all sitting on the fireplace. Yep. So I hope you explained, or I hope you
explained.
I hope you enjoyed this short explainer video of what you're going to be seeing coming up.
Explainer.
This is how we do it. The 80s call. They want their music back.